Okay, so imagine this. You've finally gotten rid of those braces. Your teeth, they look amazing, but then it kind of hits you. How do they stay that way? Like, is it magic? I feel like it's a question we've all thought about at some point, right?
It's a question I get a lot, actually. You see, teeth, well, they have this natural tendency. They want to shift back to where they were before, after you've had orthodontic treatment.
Mm.
And we call that orthodontic relapse. And that's exactly where retainers come in. They're the key to keeping that smile you work so hard for.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So for today's deep dive, we're going to take a closer look at the world of retainers, specifically something called, get this, splintaggio. Yes, splintaggio sounds kind of fancy, right? We found this term on a website for ORTHOTEAM, an Italian orthodontic supply company. It's like we're getting a sneak peek behind the curtain, seeing what dentists use.
Splintaggio is basically Italian for splinting. And in this case, it's talking about a fixed retainer that's attached behind the teeth, a lingual splint.
Lingual, like tongue, right? So it's hidden from view. And hopefully way more comfy than those retainers you have to keep popping in and out.
Exactly. Lingual retainers, they're great for a discreet, comfortable way to keep those teeth aligned. And this OrthoTeam website, it gets into some pretty cool detail about the materials they use. Like, did you know there are different types of wires specifically for these retainers?
No way. Seriously, I just pictured like a plain old metal wire. But this website, it talks about a few different options. One that caught my eye is called Bond a Braid. With a name like that, it's gotta be comfy.
It makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Bond a braid is made of, get this, 8 tiny wires braided together. That braiding, it creates this flat surface, sits right up against your tongue without irritating it too much.
Okay, that makes sense. And then there's this other one, Britannium, which just sounds like, I don't know, something out of a sci-fi movie.
It does sound kind of futuristic, doesn't it? The really cool thing about Rutenium is that it's nickel-free, so people with metal allergies can use it without worry.
Wow, see, that's something I never would have even thought about. And for those who like things a little, shall we say, high-end, they've got OrthoFlex Tech, which they even make in gold. But the big deal seems to be how well it fits the shape of your teeth. Am I right?
That's right. The website really emphasizes that OrthoFlex Tech, it's made to follow the natural curve of your teeth, making sure the pressure is even and your teeth stay aligned.
This is so interesting. Okay, so we've got these different wires, each with their own thing. But it makes you wonder, do orthodontists always go for custom-made wires? Or are there, like, pre-made options, too?
That's a great question. While this website is all about specific brands and materials, there are definitely pre-made options out there. Whether an orthodontist uses custom-made or pre-made, it really comes down to how complex the case is and what they think is best.
Wow, it's amazing how much goes into just one little retainer. I always thought they were kind of one size fits all, to be honest. But hey, speaking of customization, did you notice they even have different types of glue to hold the retainer in place?
You're right, they do. It's not actually glue, though. They use dental composites. And this website actually lists the brands they like to use.
Two that caught my eye were Ortho Connect Flow and Flowtane. Ortho Connect Flow, I mean, just the name makes it sound super easy to use, like those fancy glue sticks.
It does sound pretty user-friendly, doesn't it? It could mean the whole bonding process is more streamlined.
And then there's Flowtane, which needs a primer first. That makes me think it's like the heavy-duty option, maybe a Bond Stronger or something.
That's a good guess. The choice of composite, it probably comes down to a bunch of things, like how the patient's bite is, how their teeth are aligned, and even what techniques the orthodontist prefers.
So we've spent a lot of time on fixed retainers, but this website, it barely mentions other types, like the removable ones. It makes you wonder, are those like going out of style or something?
Not at all. Actually, removable retainers, they're still super common. A lot of people, they'll wear them after having a fixed retainer for a while. It often depends on the person and what their orthodontist recommends. Sometimes a fixed retainer is best for stability, especially right after braces come off. But later on, a removable one might be all you need.
That makes sense. So it's not always either. Sometimes it's like a combo deal. Man, I'm learning so much about all these options. But this whole retainer deep dive, it started because we were curious about that after braces life, right? And it makes me think, maybe we should back up a sec. This OrthoTeam website, it also talks about palate expanders, and those sound kind of intense.
They do sound a little intimidating, yeah. But palate expanders are actually pretty routine, especially for younger patients.
Okay, but hold on. What does it even mean to expand your palate?
So the palate, that's the roof of your mouth. Sometimes it can be too narrow, which can crowd teeth. mess up their alignment, even cause bite problems. And that's where the palate expander comes in. It gently widens the upper jaw, making more space for the teeth to line up like they should.
Ah, so it's like laying a bigger foundation for the teeth to move into.
That's a great way to put it. And it works best when patients are younger, or, childhood, adolescence, when their bones are still growing and can adapt easier.
Right, that makes sense. But how does it actually work? I'm picturing something out of like a medieval torture chamber, haha.
I promise it's not nearly as scary as it sounds.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, the expander, it's attached to the upper molars with bands, or sometimes a cemented appliance. And it's got this screw in the middle that you gradually turn. A lot of times the patient or their parent does it to gently push the two halves of the palate apart.
Wait, hold up. You're telling me I'd be in charge of turning a screw in my own mouth?
It's really not as bad as you think, trust me. The orthodontist will give you super clear instructions on when to turn it, how much to turn it, the whole 9 yards. And it happens slowly, so it's not like you're cranking it open all at once. It's designed to be as comfy as possible.
Okay, phew. That does make me feel a bit better, haha. But once the palate is, expanded, what happens then? Do you need a retainer forever?
Another good question. After they get the expansion they need, the expander usually stays in for a bit to let the bones settle. And yeah, after that, a retainer is usually recommended to hold that expansion and keep the palate from shifting back.
So it's like a two-parter: expand, then maintain. And I'm guessing the type of retainer, whether it's fixed or removable, that depends on the situation, right?
Got it. It's different for everyone, so the orthodontist, they'll figure out the best plan.
Mm.
But this whole thing just shows how important early intervention can be with orthodontics. If you deal with issues like a narrow palate early on, it can actually prevent bigger problems down the line.
It's wild how everything's connected. The palate, the jaw, the teeth. It's like a whole system. Speaking of connected, this ORTHOTEAM website, they mention something called intermaxillary elastics. And let's be real, that name does not exactly roll off the tongue, does it?
It's a mouthful, that's for sure. Intermaxillary elastics, they might sound kind of scary, but they're really just rubber bands. You might know them as the elastics that people wear with their braces sometimes.
Oh, right, rubber bands. That makes so much more sense. But why even add those to the mix? Aren't braces enough on their own?
Rubber bands, they have a very specific job. They help to get the bite aligned properly by putting extra force on the teeth and jaws. See, it's not just about straightening each tooth individually. It's about how the top and bottom teeth fit together. Orthodontists, they call that occlusion.
So it's like fine-tuning everything, making sure it all meshes together the right way.
You got it. A good bite, it's super important for chewing, talking, even just having a healthy mouth overall. And sometimes those little rubber bands are the key.
They might not be the most glamorous things, but hey, they get the job done. I vaguely remember some friends back in the day, they would complain about those rubber bands, though. Are they really that uncomfortable? I guess it's like anything else, right? There's got to be an adjustment period. Some people, they probably sail through it no problem. And others, well, let's just say they've got stories, right?
That's for sure. Everyone's different. Everyone's got their own pain tolerance.
Oh, well.
And let's face it, the mouth is a pretty sensitive area.
No kidding. Okay, so we've got braces, we've got these palate expanders, we've got tiny rubber bands doing their thing. Anything else orthodontists might have up their sleeves? Like any secret weapons?
Well, every case is different, so they've got a whole bunch of tools they can use. One thing that sometimes surprises people is the use of temporary anchorage devices. PADs, for short.
TADs. Okay, more acronyms.
I know, but they sound scarier than they are, I promise. TADs, they're basically like tiny screws, and they get put right into the jawbone, but only temporarily.
Mini screws in the jawbone. Yeah, okay, that does sound a little intense.
It sounds like a much bigger deal than it actually is. They use local anesthesia to put them in and take them out, and most people handle it just fine.
Wow, that's pretty amazing when you think about it. So these tackades, they're like anchors then, to move the teeth better.
Exactly. Think of it like this. They give the orthodontist this solid point to work from, so they can move teeth more predictably. Especially for those really tricky cases, it makes a huge difference.
It's kind of mind-blowing when you realize how much technology and precision goes into getting a straight smile. I have to admit, I always thought it was mostly about looks, but it's obviously way more than that.
Oh, absolutely. It's about having a bite that's healthy and functional. That's what lets you chew properly, talk properly, and just have a healthier mouth overall. We've really only scratched the surface here today.
We have, haven't we? And it's funny, we started out wanting to know about retainers, that whole after braces world. But we basically took a tour of like the entire orthodontic process.
It just goes to show oral health, it's a journey. And orthodontics, it's a big part of that, no matter how old you are.
So true. Well, I think we can all agree we learned a lot today. From splintaggio to palate expanders to, mini screws in the jawbone. It's been quite a ride.
It has been quite a deep dive.
It really has. And, even if you're not planning on getting braces anytime soon, it's pretty cool to peek behind the curtain like this, to see all the science and tech that goes into making those smiles we see everywhere.
I totally agree. Knowledge is power. Right. When you understand how orthodontics works, you can make better choices for your own oral health.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, folks, that about wraps up our deep dive into the world of orthodontics. We hope you enjoyed coming along for the ride.
And remember, if you're thinking about orthodontic treatment for yourself or maybe your kids, or if you've just got questions about your oral health, don't hesitate to talk to your dentist or orthodontist. They're the experts, and they'll give you the best advice for your specific situation.
Couldn't agree more. They're the pros. Until next time, keep those smiles bright. A healthy smile is a happy smile.
Here's to that.
This has been The Deep Dive.